Your Creative Push, episode 264.
If you have a creative passion that you're not pursuing, chances are you're feeling a little bit negative and sad about it.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Megan Carty. Megan is an artist who creates cheerful, abstract, floral paintings. And while her paintings may be very cheerful, it took her quite some time to get to that point. And she comes on the show today to talk about that journey, some of the trials and tribulations that she went through after college, including sexism, 9/11, depression, layoffs, breakups, and struggling to find that right fit career-wise. I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. And she really dives deep into how she was able to get through that long and arduous journey to really find her joy now. She talks about the seed that was planted in her at a young age to seek praise and do what the teacher wants you to do rather than what you actually want to do. And similarly, how that thread of comparing yourself to others lasted throughout her entire life. But while there were many negative times, some negative experiences that she did have, she reminds us of the importance of appreciating those negative experiences while you don't know what brings you joy, because they will inform you of what does bring you joy. And also the important decision that you have to make to not wait until you reach point B to be happy, but to attempt to experience happiness today and throughout your journey as you go from point A to point B. She also gives us tips for when we might struggle with negative thoughts or even depression, what works for her and what gets her back onto that path of joy. I have to tell you that this is one of those episodes that I personally really needed. I have been in a kind of a negative funk for a few days, and in editing this episode and listening back, it was like she was talking to me. I guess she was actually talking to me when I interviewed her, of course, but it really hit home even harder for me listening back to it and editing it for you guys. I did use some of the tips that she shares in this episode, and I swear it changed my entire weekend. It made me more productive and more happy, just making the decision to be happy. So for that reason, I am really excited and happy for you to listen to Megan's story. So please do enjoy my conversation with Megan Carty. Megan, welcome to Your Creative Push.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm very excited to have you. We like to start out by giving you an opportunity to kind of give us a brief bio, sort of how you got to the point that you are today in your creative life.
Okay, let's see. Where do I start? I was one of those kids who loved art and creating, and it's funny because I remember being 5 or 6 going to a babysitter, and she had all boys that I was with, and I didn't have any toys that interested me because I wasn't into He-Man and like G.I. Joe. So,
Yeah.
So I drew all the time to keep myself busy and occupied. And I just think through practice, I just, started to love it. And it's funny, I have a first grade, like a little book we had to write in school. And then there was a little author bio in the back with your picture. And it said, Megan wants to be an art teacher when she grows up. And, so I think even at an early age, I've just always known that art, and fine art was like a calling. I never ever doubted it and just said, this is what I'm going to be. So I just sort of went forward through it. I do remember a formative happening in 4th grade where we had this teacher who was extremely, I'll say discouraging. And she was really would show the kids who had natural talent, would show their pictures to the class and be like, look how they did it. You should do like them. And yeah, exactly. There's a lot of, you start to think, well, what's wrong with mine? And it plants these seeds of doubt inside of you. And you start to work not for yourself, but for the praise of the teacher. You think, I want to get noticed. I want my picture held up. And you start to, even though you're only like 9 years old, you start to play a game, which is who can get the most attention and who can get that like little nut of, of praise. And in my memory, that's my first time noticing a little bit of negativity in my journey where, you know, if I did something wrong on a lesson or she considered me doing something wrong, she would say, well, no, do it this way. And she would grab my paper and draw on it or move things around. And, you know, and I always just felt so frustrated by that and confused, like, can't I do it my way? And it turned me off of art. I didn't even take art in junior high. I just stopped creating. But I would secretly do things at home. Like I would draw in a sketchbook or I would like watch Bob Ross on
Yes.
Love him and his happy trees and clouds.
He's the best.
Oh, so amazing. And so I would like just study his show and like record them and watch them. And my dad had some old oil paints that were left in our home and he said, here, give it a try. So I just got it out and copied what Bob Ross was doing and found it to be so fun and easy. And I love just feeling like I'm making something. Look what I've done. Like I've created fire, you know. So I think that feeling became addicting and I decided to just keep at it on my own. And I just developed my skills just through books, how to draw books and different things like that. I just explored my own path with that. And you know, in high school, I got back into it and took all the art courses that they offered, and decided I was going to go to college and study art in a university setting. So I went to Syracuse University. They have an art school within a visual and performing arts college there. And I went in with the intention to major in illustration. I thought, oh, illustration's the perfect thing. I can draw and create and just like use art to make a living. This will be awesome. And this was me before, you know, while I was pure and innocent. Right. And when I got there, we had all the freshmen take foundation and you have to take all these different, you know, studio courses. You have to take 18 credits of courses and they're all like 6 hours each. And it was just really rigorous, like incredibly rigorous and exhausting. And I did not have a social life. I did not have a lot of fun. I had a hard time making friends. I felt awkward and like from a small town in Maine. And I just felt, so everyone else was like from Chicago and New York and all these other, like, to me seemed like these exotic, sophisticated places. And I felt like, you know, our school didn't have half of the programs their high schools had. So I didn't feel as prepared as them. As we started to show our work to each other, you know, I thought, oh, well, my skills aren't even half of what these people's skills are. And I really started to doubt my abilities and start to second guess my dreams. And I saw other students who their technical skills were amazing. They could do these photorealist portraits and paintings, and it was just mind-blowing at that time. And I had never seen anybody doing anything like that before, because this was before the internet was prevalent. So, you know, I hadn't been exposed to the plethora of the bazillion other artists out there and what they're up to. So this was my first time seeing, wow, what people are capable of. And I felt so less than. I felt so like deflated, and it was just my own mindset was starting to get me down. So I changed my major, to stay in art, but I said, you know what, I'll do advertising design. You know, it's a computer, it's a little less like hands-on skill and a little more like I still got to be creative. And I was really good at coming up with clever ideas and like for commercials and ads. So I thought, okay, you know, this will be the thing I'll do. And I got really excited about it and really got into it. So the whole rest of college, I just focused on computer, you know, and I still had to take studio electives and I enjoyed them. And I mostly took painting and figure drawing as my electives. And I enjoyed it. But again, I thought to myself, well, I can't make a living as an artist. No one does that. And I thought like the most obvious thing would be to do something that you could make money at with a salary and get a job. So I never really even entertained the idea that you could work as an artist. especially because at the time I thought, well, you have to have in galleries, and you have to live in New York City or big city. And I don't have any money to do that. I don't even know anybody in the cities. Who would I live with? I just totally let all of the roadblocks and issues overcome me, and took what I think now, looking back, was probably an easier way out. At the time, though, I just sort of talked myself out of things and then coached myself into a good mindset with, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be the best advertiser there is, and this and that. And they were really grooming us to go to New York and live the advertising lifestyle and work 90 hours a week, and kind of like Mad Men, but modern day, work in the creative department and just create. But as it got closer to graduation, I got more and more nervous about it. I was like, I don't want to go to New York City and work 90 hours a week. Who wants to do that? Like, I had a real feeling that I wanted to enjoy my life. And I didn't think it meshed well with working 90 hours a week for like, at the time, it was like $24,000 salary. I'm like, how am I going to live in New York City not knowing anybody on $24,000 a year and working 90 hours a week so I can't have a second job? Like, I didn't understand. And I didn't come from money. I come from a very lower middle class, working family. I was like, a lot of the kids in my program at the time had come from a lot of money, and their parents could say, oh, you can come and intern and work for free, or we'll pay for your rent and this and that. And so that was really disappointing to me that I felt like it was the first time I felt like my background was holding me back, and I just let it. Instead of trying to find a solution, I said, you know what, I'm going to find a different place to work and different place to be a designer. And I ended up finding a job just outside of Boston. It was kind of like one of the first jobs I'd been offered. And it was like this small mid-sized agency, and it was the worst. It was the worst. The men that owned the place were like, I feel like they secretly hated women, and they were against young people. They thought we were all idiots. And there was just a definite atmosphere of negativity there. We were yelled at constantly. I mean, I worked hard, but was basically ridiculed every day. I cried every night, every single night. I was like, this is the worst. I wished at the time that I had chosen something that felt more like a fit, but I was excited. I was like, oh, it's my first job out of college. I'm going to just take it and win. I'm winning. And then I quickly learned that it's not winning. Like, it was a very abusive environment. And it's sort of, I lived in this cloud of just negativity, and it really started to get to me. I got really depressed. And, I'd battled with depression since I was a teenager, but it got really bad during that time. And I think it was because it was just constant negativity surrounding me and infecting my whole spirit. It just was so awful. And I started looking for a new job in that time, but nothing was coming up. And 9/11 happened. And I was at work that day, and I'd only been at my job a couple months. And at that point it had been almost a year. So I had switched. Why I'm thinking it was a new job is because I had gone from being a designer to, I said, you know what, I'm bored. I'm bored doing these stupid ads for these dumb things that no one cares about. I just felt so like I'm a glorified sign painter. And it was for microchips and all these different technological industries. I'm like, I don't even like what I'm doing. So I became an account executive. I started working for the client directly instead of doing design. And so I just started doing that. And then 9/11 happened, and it was just chaos in our country, but just a collective sense of chaos everywhere. And it really sort of defined the economy for the following year. Not only was it a horrible situation and a loss of life, but things just shut down, like jobs stopped happening, and there just wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for a while and to get out. And I remember during that time thinking, all these people are losing their lives. I'm watching it on TV in my job. And my horrible boss says, well, let's go, guys. Get back to work. The world keeps spinning.
Ugh.
Yeah. And this is while the tower is falling. And I sat there and I said, I will never be like this person. And I will never again put myself in a situation where I would work for anyone who is such a negative, horrible person. So I decided, that's it, I'm leaving. I found a new job within a few months and I quit. I actually didn't even give notice, which is really unprofessional, but I had been treated so poorly. I just packed up my cubicle and I said, I'm leaving. And I said, have a nice life. And I
Bye.
it was like, bye. I got in the car with my little box of stuff and everyone's like, where are you going? Like, what's happening right now? And I'm like, I'm sick of this place. I have a new job. This place sucks. You're lucky I haven't sued you for sexism. Have a good one. Out I went, never looked back. And, and then I went on to work for smaller firms with much better clients. And things got so much better, but I got laid off. And and it was the economic downturn in 2002, I think it was. And I was a year without a job. I applied to everything on the entire East Coast, anything I was qualified for, but there was only ever like 4 jobs total that I was qualified for that were open. And no one was hiring, and I had to move in with my parents. And I thought, this is it. My boyfriend who I had lived with and was serious with, we broke up. He broke up with me, and I lost my job. And I had to move in with my parents all in the same week. And my life, I really felt like it was just falling apart. I was like, I can't take anymore. So I'm driving home back to Maine with my dog in the car and my tail between my legs and my laptop. Like my whole portfolio and life was on that laptop. And the dog peed and fried the motherboard on my laptop.
Oh, God.
So everything, my entire portfolio from college and all of my working years up to that point was gone. And I just sat there. When I got to Maine, got into the kitchen, my parents were like, hey, we're so excited to see you. And I just could not stop crying. I was like, everything's gone. The love that at the time I thought, this is the love of my life of several years. He's gone. My apartment's gone. My job is gone. Now my work is gone. And it blew up and I just had to start over. Luckily, my father is a computer whiz and he was able to fix it, and then we were able to ship the computer out and get it fixed. So all that worked out in the end, but it was a couple months before it was fixed. So I had time on my hands to look for work and just sort of heal from everything I'd just been through. Then, fast forward a year and I find a job at a corporate retail company as a graphic designer, and I moved and got this job and things started to pick up. I loved the job. I was making friends. And then I met a really nice guy who ended up being my husband. And it all just fell into place within months. It was like bing, 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 bing. Job, friends, boyfriend. So it's interesting to me looking back. It really feels like things that I was on the wrong path. And I was doing all the wrong things. And everything had to blow up in order for me to get onto the right path and go the right way that felt better.
Right.
I just wasn't listening at the time and following the cues. And I was just staying in these negative places because I wasn't meant to be there. And I feel like deep down I knew, but I didn't listen.
Right. You needed that kind of reset where everything just gets figuratively and literally pissed on.
Yes.
For you
exactly.
To just finally see the signs and reset. Now, do you think that you would have, you said you saw the signs and you kind of just either ignored them or embraced them and brought them into this kind of negative cloud that you're talking about? Do you think that it would have been possible for you to have kind of read the signs and made the decision to switch to change everything up and to get on like the right path without having it all kind of blow up?
I think if I were to be honest, looking back at it, I think no, I don't think I would have had the strength at that time. I really think because I was so new and because I had never been in the situation before, I didn't have anything to go on. So I thought I had to control everything. And I thought, I'm going to make it work. And I'm going to do this. And everything that I thought I wanted in my head, I thought that this was just the way it is. You have to just suffer, or you have to quote, they say, pay your dues. And this is just how it is. I'm air quoting.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, I'll just live with it and eventually it'll get better. And I just kept waiting for this eventual thing. And I didn't realize that I could grab the bull by the horns and make it better now. That's something I know that I can do now. But at the time, it was all new to me. So I can't blame myself, but now I've had to do work to forgive myself for letting myself go through all of that, for allowing all that to happen, and for not knowing better. And I think, God, like I wasted so much time in all this negative space. Why wasn't I better to myself? Why didn't I stick up for myself more? Like, I just feel like I just let a lot of things happen, and I had to forgive myself because I just didn't know any better. And I was doing my best. And I really feel like all that stuff had to happen to pave the way for me to get to, you have to go through the negative to know what you want. Like you have to know what you don't want to figure out what it is you really do want and to find joy. Like what makes you joyful? Well, the contrast is the negative things that help you find what's joyous to you. So I have to be appreciative of it too, that it was a learning experience. And, later on down the line, I went on to leave my job and I was freelancing, doing graphic design freelancing. And that's when Etsy happened. Etsy started, and that was like the handmade world was just starting. And I was like, wow, you can make stuff and sell it online. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. Who does this? This is so awesome. So I signed right up, like instantly, and just like started, like stationery was big at the time, and letterpress was starting to get big, and blogs started. It was around 2006. And I'm like, so I started my own little art blog and, on Blogspot, and wrote about things that interested me. And at the same time, Design Sponge started, and Decor 8 started, and Oh Joy started. And I would read their blogs, and then I would make things and submit them. And, and maybe a letterpress print I had done got featured on Design Sponge, and I got some sales from it. And I was like, this is it. Like, I was just really, really excited that people were interested in what I was making, and I could actually sell it and put it out there. And I was like, this is amazing. But then I realized, like, the world of possibility for me was a little much. Like, I was like, I could do anything. And then it kind of,
it's too much, yeah.
Yeah. And then I froze because I was like, well, I could do anything. What should I do? What can I do? What do people want? What's interesting? And people on there on Etsy at the time were doing these little edgy, kind of weird drawings and funky, crafty things. And I'm like, well, that didn't interest me. I'm like, that's not who I am. I don't make weird little drawings and stuff like that. I'm like, what do I have to offer? So I started making, greeting cards, and I got a letterpress and started doing letterpress stationery. And I loved the process of designing the cards. Printing them was a lot more difficult. Definitely not my zone of genius, but I worked it out. It was a lot of work for very little money. It was like, blood, sweat, and tears. And then you're like, here's my $4 card. Please buy it. And so it was frustrating. And I thought, what am I doing? Like, I'm putting in all this effort. I had lost the sense of just joy of creating. And I think anyone who is interested or is wishing for a creative life, you kind of have to look at it and say, what is it I want to make? And what is it that makes me the most happy while I'm making it? I think at the time I got a little just starry-eyed about the idea that I could sell my work online and that people would buy it. And I didn't really take time to wonder what makes me happy. It was, well, what do other people want and what are they going to buy? What can I do to make an impact, and what can I make that's going to make people buy this?
Yeah. What can I do that's going to make the teacher hold it up for everybody else?
Yes, that's why I told that story, is it kind of connects. It's like, well, now I'm back into this people-pleasing mode of wanting to get noticed. I want attention, and I want that, again, that nut of praise. Hey, look at what she's doing. That's really cool. And that is not the place to come from, because that's coming from a place of worry, of feeling inferior, feeling insecure, and feeling not good enough. And things aren't going to flow when you're in that kind of mindset. Even if you don't realize you're in that mindset, things aren't going to go your way. You're just going to get more, more doubt and more inferiority feeling. And I just learned over the course of the years that I would try different things. Well, this isn't catching on. Well, maybe this will catch on. And I would try and spend a few months on this thing. And if it didn't catch on, I'd quit before it had a chance to succeed. And every time I would quit, I would try something totally different. So it was like one day it's photography, and then the next day it's more greeting cards, and then the next day it's prints. And it was just like exhausting because I never felt like I had found my thing. And I constantly felt like I was lost and wandering while I'm watching all these other people succeed and make all this money they could live on. And for us, it was just my husband's job. I was lucky enough to have that my husband's job, covered things. And I just got so sad. Like, why aren't I good enough? Why isn't my stuff catching on? And why I must not be good enough or popular enough or cool enough. Maybe I'm not in the right cliques online, or, there's these different groups that, if you're not in these groups, then you just kind of weren't ever talked about or noticed. And I just always felt like that growing up as a kid. I was always kind of like nice to everyone, but never really belonged to one group. And so I think that carried through for me, where I always still felt like a little bit of a lone wolf. And I felt like I didn't belong and needed to try to fit in. So again, I think if someone is interested in wanting to do a creative career or do something creative full time, it's really helpful to stop and look at your life and where you've been and how is that informing your decisions now. Just taking a look at where you've been and now what you do, and why are you doing what you do right now? Is it because you're reacting to just your own mindset? I just thought, I'm not cool enough because I didn't feel cool enough then. And it was just, hey, maybe my work wasn't getting in front of the right people, or maybe I didn't give it enough time. I just kept changing from thing to thing to thing if it didn't take off overnight. And I didn't give things enough of a chance. And I didn't give myself enough of a chance to find what I most enjoyed doing. In the midst of all of this, I would have distractions, family distractions. I was married, so I had my husband to be with, and then decided to start a family. And I had like a good handful of pregnancy losses for various medical reasons. And I think the trauma of that just made me stop creating for a while. I was just so, again, lost and wondering what was wrong with me. Why was this happening to me? What had I done wrong? Why was I being punished? And it took a long time to understand that I wasn't being punished and I hadn't done anything wrong, that this was just the path that was happening to me to get me to where I needed to go. And through all of that, I found health issues that were happening, and I was able to fix those health issues, and I was able to move forward. But in that time, a huge shift happened for me. I had another pregnancy loss and was just feeling really low. And I had been really sad for months and months. Just, again, another negative cloud. And I had like an epiphany. And I said, you know what? I'm spending so much time thinking about why is this happening to me and feeling sad and worried, will it happen? Will it ever happen for me? I'm losing sight of why I wanted a family. I'm losing sight of the excitement and the joy and the expectation of what it is I wanted. So I decided I'm going to change my focus. And instead of worrying, is it going to work out? I'm going to assume it's going to work out. And I'm going to start thinking about having a baby. And I'm going to think about holding that baby and being excited about the baby. And I would let myself, even if it was painful at first, I let myself imagine holding a baby and kissing its cheek and giggling with this baby and letting myself feel the feelings of what it was actually going to be like. I let myself daydream and go there. And I thought it might make me sad to do that, but it didn't. It made me feel really hopeful and really positive. And I was flooded with like excited feelings and good feelings. And I thought, wow, I like this. I'm going to keep doing it. So I continued to visualize every day. I didn't realize it was called visualization, but at the time I just thought, I'm just sick of feeling awful. And then I got pregnant like 2 months later, and that I had my daughter.
Yay!
Yay! And I tell that story because it applies to the art world. If you're nervous to create or put yourself out there, it's probably because there's a negativity going on where you're scared to put yourself out there. You're scared to spend the money on materials. There's hesitation. There's worry that no one will like it, or maybe no one will buy it, or no one's going to be interested. So you let that fear and that worry kind of cloud over you. And if the law of attraction is going to say that's what you're focused on, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get more worry. You're going to get more of things not selling. You're going to get more of whatever it is you're focusing on. So if you put your focus on what it is you want and imagining and feeling the excitement of what you want, then you're excited to move forward. You're excited to go for the things you want, and you're ready to act. And nothing can get you down because this is it. And I feel like that example played out for me with my children. And now I have 3 children, and I defied a lot of odds. But I really feel like my mindset had a huge role. And I can't suggest that even like people suffering from infertility, just think positively and you'll have a child. But I do believe that if you have hope and imagine what life will be like, your child's going to come to you, whether it's through your own body or through someone else's body. I really believe we're chosen, and what we want will come to us. We just have to wait with joy and expectancy.
And patience.
And patience. And patience is hard. And the other thing is patience kind of like, there people say, have patience. And you're like, ugh, because as a child, you're like, I want Christmas now.
Right.
And you're like, patience almost has this negative vibe. And it also suggests there's a point A and a point B. And if you're just patient, you'll get to point B and then you'll be happy. And I've found that you have to be joyful in the journey from A to B. You have to say, well, I'm going to be happy today. Screw waiting till B. Like, I'm going to say, what can I do today that's fun for me and making this journey a blessing and a lot of fun for myself and make me feel excited rather than, oh, it's taking a long time. Maybe it's not going to happen. And you start to like second guess, and then that negative spiral happens. But if you stay in a place of excitement and joy and expectation, then it comes to you. And this is all just stuff I had figured out over time with all these things happening to me. And now I'm realizing there's whole books written about this, and there's like a whole like world out there of spirituality and all these different books written about the law of attraction and money mindset and all these different mindset things that are out there that you can read and learn how to come from a joyful place. And how do I get there if I'm depressed? How do How do I change my way of thinking?
Doesn't that make it even better though? Like whenever you figure something out, or you've been thinking about something in your own mind, something that's kind of like weird or out there, but something that works for you, and then you find that thing like exists already. I found that when that happens for me, it's just like so much more of a magical experience, and I'm like, it's just like so much more affirmative. You're just like, yep, that's true. Like when you can find something out like that on your own, or prove something like that on your own, and then actually like have like that kind of scientific, not scientific verification, but that verification that yes, other people experience this too, or yes, this is an actual thing. It makes it so much more like potent.
It really does. And you feel like, wow, I'm not the only one. And hey, this is a real thing. And there's people who've studied this, and I'm not crazy, or I'm not just making stuff up. And you know what? It's very validating. I feel like, like this was all for a reason.
Right.
And when you're in it, it's hard to see it. But when you can stop and take charge of your life through your thoughts, and through your mindset, everything changes. And it's a conscious choice. You actually fake it till you make it, but you actually, sit down and say, well, what is it do I want? And that took me a long time to figure out. When I finally, I've had my kids, and they're still really little, but now I'm finding I have a little more time to create. And I've really finally found what I like to paint. And I decided, you know what? I always wanted to be a fine artist. I always wanted to be a painter and a maker, but I never thought I could. I never thought I could. Now I can. I can sell online. I have a whole world open to me. I have opportunity now that I never realized was there. And my mind has expanded. I've opened up the possibilities. I said, you know what? Like, there's so many people out there who are making wonderful livings doing the things they've always wanted to do. Why can't that be me? There's no reason why I can't be that. And, even people whose skills are like what someone might say, oh, that person's like, they're subpar and they're making a living. And you could find that a way to get negative. Or you can say, wow, you know what? There's so much opportunity out there. It's unlimited. We all have a spot. We all have something to offer. There's room for everybody. Once you get your head around that, it's like the world's your oyster. And you can just say, I'm just going to make and see what happens. And just come from a place of just like excitement and watch how it unfolds. The more you try to control it and manipulate it, the less it's going to happen and work. I tried for years trying different things, and nothing ever really took off, and I never felt excited or satisfied. But now I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to paint, I'm going to make landscapes, I'm going to make seascapes. And for a while I didn't, because I thought, that's boring. No one likes landscapes and seascapes. There's so many out there. There's millions of them. Like, I'll never stand out. And so I would avoid doing them, even though I could see them in my head, and feel like I was being shown them. Like, here, make this. It's like channeling. It was like, you should be making this and this, but I would ignore it and say, well, I don't want to be boring, or I don't want to do the same thing all these other people are doing. No one will notice me. Again, holding myself back from what I had to offer. But no one was going to paint those things the way I paint them. And I think people let fear hold them back, saying, well, what I have to offer isn't going to stand out enough, or isn't as good as so-and-so's work. It's like, well, there are people who like their work, and there's going to be people who like your work. And not everything is for everyone. So if you have two people making the same thing, they're each doing it their own way. And that's going to resonate with different people. So you have to kind of get on board with the idea that not everyone's going to like what I do, and that's okay. The thing is I made this for the people who do like it. And I made this for the people who do appreciate it. And they'll find me. And I think that's the freeing moment, when you can stop and say, I have value, and the things I have to say and do matter. And it's my job here in my life. I'm here to share what it is I most desire to share, whatever that is. And I have a job to put that out there and put out that positive energy and everything will expand. And that's really made a huge difference in my life. And now I come from a place when I sit down to create, I think, what do I feel like making and what's going to be fun for me? And I think of it right away and I sit down and I put on my music and I'm just excited and happy and I don't try to force it and I don't stress and hustle. And I just like let it all flow now. And I'm like, you know what? This will find a home. This painting will find its owner. All I can do is share it on my social media and put it out there and just be me. And eventually it's going to be brought to its own home because it has to, because I made it from a place of expectation and joy and happiness and excitement. And, that can never be wrong. And, I think the law of attraction works for me in that way. The more I expect good things, the more good things happen. So it's been quite a journey in my life, like finding these sort of mindset issues through the negative things that I've been through have then in turn helped me out of depression, helped me out of suicidal thoughts, helped me out of not selling my work and feeling less than. And now I choose the way I think each day. I think today's going to be awesome. My kids are going to behave. My kids are going to listen to me. We're going to have fun together. I'm going to paint and it's going to be awesome and it's going to be colorful and exciting and I'm going to have the best day ever. I'm going to just do all the things on my best day. I'm going to eat the cookie. I'm going to have the hot chocolate, and instead of worrying about what I should be doing, I'm focusing on what I want to be doing. And wherever that energy goes, that's where the energy flows. So.
Right. What I like about your story is the through line of joy, of following joy. Like when you were in like kind of the path after college of getting a job and then like hating it, but like still trying to make it fit, trying to make that one path that you think like needs to work, trying to force it to work. And then on the other end, like where you realize that you have like infinite paths and like, which one do I pick? It's like, again, following that joy, like using that joy to realize that you either need to leave that job that you hate or that joy to figure out exactly what it is that you want to do. And I really love that. Like I've heard you say before that you want to spread joy and peace one painting at a time. And I think that's like really important to not only like find the joy for yourself, but like put that joy into the painting or whatever the art is that you're doing to share with the person who's going to consume that, whether they're buying it or not, the person that's going to see that, like to try to like not share like your technical skills or whatever. It's sharing that emotion so that they can like try to find their own joy and their own path.
Yeah. And it gives your life so much more meaning and satisfaction when you know you're sharing something from an authentic place and that someone else is then picking up on that vibration and it resonates with them and they say, I want that. I need that in my home and surround myself with that. And I think that's what's speaking to people. That's what's tricky about creating art and selling it is it's like you're trying to find the right people to resonate with what it is you're doing. And that can take time, but you just have to have faith in that. And by spreading joy and being joyous, you'll be joy and then you'll get joy. So it's just the cycle. And you use your emotions as your guide. If you're feeling miserable and unhappy and depressed, then that's your factor in saying you're in the wrong place. It's that simple. If you aren't happy and coming from a place of joy, then you're on the wrong track. And you need to stop and say, well, what can I do to get on the right track? And what do I want in my deepest desires? What's going to make me feel joyous? And how can I do that thing as much as possible so that more joy can come and I can feel better? And when you don't listen to it, you'll find you start to get down, tired, no energy, procrastination. You don't flow. But when you say, hey, I always feel so much better when I'm doing this thing, then, wow, look, everything else starts to pick up again and life seems, rosy and fun.
Now, what do you do whenever you, like today's Megan, like when you kind of experience that like depression, or you experience that no motivation or no inspiration? What do you do aside from sitting down and just kind of starting and trying to find that joy? Like, do you have any other tricks for like getting out there, or any other tricks for kind of trying to get yourself back in a better mindset so you can approach the canvas in a positive and a joyful state?
Yes. This happens to me a lot. Like, as I said, I do battle depression, which I feel like it's a chemical thing. So
Right.
I have to like actively like slay it. And so what I do and what works for me is when I notice that this is happening, like I'm getting negative, usually it starts when I'm like looking at social media and I'm starting to see what other people are doing and the successes of them. So now I stop. Like, I'm trying to not consume social media, Instagram and Facebook and all of the things. It's a distraction from my joy. I need to stay in a joyful place. So if there's something that's taking me out of that joyful state, I need to turn it off and avoid it. And so I can look at it a little bit here and there, like for a minute or two, and then I'll turn it off and say, good for them. Yay. We're all doing well. All is right. And I just turn it off. So I have to actively don't go down the shame spiral of, well, I'm not doing that. And look what they're doing, because that, again, that puts you in that place of lack and that you're focusing that energy. So you need to notice. That's the first step, is notice when you're putting your energy on things that are making you feel bad. Put the energy and you start to say, okay, what can I do to focus on something good and what I do want? What's positive? And so if I'm feeling really bad, I'll say, okay, I want a hot chocolate. So I'll go and I'll make a hot chocolate. I'll be, ooh, this is good. Oh yeah, Then I'll put on like some cheesy 90s music. Like Motown Philly, right, Boys to Men, or something like,
Yes.
or 80s hair rock, or something that just makes me look back and be like, yeah. And I just sort of do the Running Man in my kitchen. And, and I feel so stupid, but at the same time, no one's here. Who's going to care? So I do it because it lifts my vibrations and I get that energy up. It forces the energy up. I can't stay depressed when I'm listening to fun 90s, Vanilla Ice and stuff like that. So that's the physical way. And then what I also can do is I'll sit down with a piece of paper and I'll say, what is it, if I'm feeling less than or feeling like it's not happening quick enough and I'm starting to get doubtful, I start again. What am I grateful for? And I'll make a huge list. I've got this, I've got that. From health through a roof over our head to food, but also like my daughter's smile or my dog's furry face, or just like things that I can think of. So that gets my vibe up. And then I start to think, what is it that I really want out of life? Like, I want to paint every day and I want to have it be easy. I want to sell my work with ease and joy and not have to hustle. I want to be able to wake up and have my own flexible schedule and not have a boss telling me what to do. I want to have the freedom of time. So I do that. I make a list of what is it that I most want. And I daydream and I picture what's my life like when I have these things, and I imagine getting up and what am I going to wear? And then I imagine like what I eat on that perfect day, that perfect normal day that someone else on one of your episodes said. And I said, yes. When I heard that episode, they said, what do you do when you think about your perfect average day?
Right.
What needs to happen on your average day that's going to make it a great day? And I think of all those things and I get excited about it and I let myself go there and feel excited. And some people say, well, doesn't that make you sad because that's not really happening yet? And I said, no, because the universe doesn't care if it's fake. The universe just hears that you're positive and joyful and you're excited and you're putting good vibes out there. So it's going to give you more of that. So you have to get excited to say, okay, I'm in that place again. Hurrah. Now things are going to start moving momentum in a good direction. But again, you can't just like wait for it to happen. You have to actively create it and say, okay, I may feel like crap right now and I may feel too tired or I don't want to do this, but I have to force myself to get excited about something. And even if it's something little, like no one said you have to create this huge masterpiece, it's like you can sit down and do a little doodle in your book and it might be amusing to you and it gives you it lights your heart up. Maybe you pay for someone's coffee or you start to do things for other people that give you that warm feeling. Anytime you're going to feel good is the direction you want to go. And anytime you're feeling less than or crappy, you need to say, stop. I'm choking off the energy to this. I'm turning around and changing directions and I'm going to go the good way. And then when anything negative is happening to you, you can note it and say, oh, that's not a good thought I just had, or, oh, this isn't the way I want to feel. Well, don't dwell on it because you're giving it energy. And then it's just going to keep coming. So you just basically close the door in its face and you say, done. What can I think upon and pray upon and daydream about like you did when you were a kid? What's fun? If you wished up, I used to wish on a star every night when I was little. And those things always came true. Everything I ever wished for on a star came true because I believed that wishes came true when you wished on a star. I had that childlike belief. I find it interesting that as you get older, you kind of lose that and you start to think, well, I need to be realistic. And I think that that's to our detriment. So I say, let go of what's realistic and don't worry about how it's going to all happen. Just know that it will happen and it's coming. And then you can get excited and put your nose to the grindstone and stay on your path. Don't copy what Joe Schmo's doing over there. What you have to offer is perfect. You don't have to copy anyone else because it's your journey and your energy. So you have to look at yourself as the gift. And I'm a spiritual being and what I have is something other people can have too.
Right. Yeah, that episode you mentioned, The Perfect Average Day, that's my man Matthew Miller.
Yes.
I'll have that linked up at the show notes page. But yeah, everything you said I agree with. And I especially like your kind of trick of kind of tricking yourself and dancing in the kitchen to stupid, to old music, you know what I mean?
Who doesn't like that?
For me, I find that when I get in funks or when I get in kind of a depression or I get just sad or I have this feeling where I want to be I don't want to be ingenuine. I want to be genuine.
Yes.
I don't want to fake it. That's to my detriment as well. And I found that for me, at least, just a simple fake smile or telling a stupid joke or just kissing my wife and not making it all about me and feeling sad. Just that one little thing can start the momentum in the happiness route. You know what I mean? Where you're just all right, yes, maybe I was not feeling happy, but I still smiled and I still tried to get in a better mindset. And that just kind of snowballs on top of each other. Cause then, then my wife will smile back or be happy that I'm happy again.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of builds on top of itself. And I think that's just the best thing to do instead of kind of stewing in that unhappiness or stewing in that depression or thinking about, how things aren't going right or what didn't go right 5 minutes ago or 5 days ago or 5 years ago. Just kind of trying to get the ball rolling in the right direction so that you can just be happy with existence and be happy and be able to put the happiness into your life and eventually into your art, to your creative passion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, when you, and it's true in relationships, if you're negative all the time, your partner starts to kind of hate you, right. And then the thing falls apart, right? Because you were coming from a negative place all the time. But if you're coming from a positive place, your partner's happy to be around you. And then you have this positive back and forth thing flowing and things stay good. But when one of the people starts to falter, and they get in a negative place, it can be really difficult to weather. And I think part of it is because there's someone who's lost the mojo of that positive vibe that they need to get back. And they need to find something that's going to bring them joy. Some people like to work out. Some people like to go skiing or do dancing or others. I mean, they crochet and they knit, but they aren't doing the thing that's meditative and joyous for them. It's like medicine. And if you're not taking your medicine, you're becoming ill. I think that's why so many artists get depressed is if they decide to quit or they stop making for a while, they're not taking their medicine.
Right.
And they fall into this energetic place that's really negative. But if they start to create again, oh, hey, they start to feel better. And I think that it all comes hand in hand. And if you have a creative passion that you're not pursuing, chances are you're feeling a little bit negative and sad about it. Like chances are you're kind of like, feeling a sense of angst that's permeating you. So what you can do is look around and say, okay, what do I have that I'm happy about and excited about? Like maybe I'm working this day job that's just like whatever, but it's like, hey, I've got a day job that's paying the bills, man. And it's like a patron, like this, gives me money so that I can go home and do the thing I love. Or, this is such a blessing because it's paving the way to the next big thing. And pretty soon it's all happening. And, this is just getting me there. And the journey, the point A to point B, that journey, the drive to, if I'm going to drive to New York City, I want the drive to be fun. It's not that, I'll be miserable until I get to New York City. And then once I get there, I can be happy. It's like, no, put on the tunes, open the window, drive a convertible, make it palatable in some way. Whatever you can make palatable for yourself. And it requires action, not hustle, but, action that's thoughtful toward what it is you want. So you have to really sit down and say, what is it that's going to make me, what's success to me? What does it mean? And what is it that I really want out of all this? And then figure that out. And once you know, you can go right after it. You have to be clear about it and do a little introspection.
Absolutely. Like you said, the artistic path or any really path is all about the journey. Life is all about the journey and trying to enjoy the ride. So like you talked about before, like once you get to point B, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be happy. You're going to have like a point C that you want to get to. So it's not like you're ever going to really reach a point where you're like, yes, I won the game.
Right.
So it's trying to always enjoy that journey. Yeah,
exactly. You think the game's over, I've won. And it's like, oh, no. Like this is just, there's a book that I'm reading right now and I'm obsessed with it. And it's called Ask and It's Given. And it's Learning to Manifest Your Desires. And it's by Esther and Jerry Hicks. There are a lot of devotees to Esther Hicks, and she basically, it sounds really outlandish and out there. But this woman, since the early 80s, has been channeling like a spirit. It's a collective spirit called Abraham. So it's basically like spirits on the other side telling her, like, here's what you need to know to get all the things you desire and have the life you're meant to have. And there's a whole, thousands of hours of recordings that she's done of channeling these things. And she gives talks and cruises, and it's like this whole world. But all that being said, what they say through Esther, is amazing. And in this book, it's all kind of written by this collective consciousness. So she sat down and wrote this book, but it's not her talking. It's this Abraham, which is these collective group trying to tell us what we need to be doing. And it's an amazing book. And I've highlighted most of it so far, but they're basically it's all of the stuff that I've been talking about. It's about staying positive. And they say we're sent here to have a joyous life. We're not sent here to fix anything, that we're here to create, and we're here to experience joy of creating. And that's it. So as long as you're finding a way to experience the joy of creation in your own way, you are doing the right thing, what you're here for. You're not here to suffer. You're not here to hustle and struggle, and they said you'll know you're going the right way through your emotions. And I've found that to be so true. You're on the right track when you're feeling good and when you're feeling high energy. And when you're not, you need to change your mindset. And this book has been a huge, huge game changer for me in learning to shift my thinking and staying in a place of positive thoughts. I have felt better than I ever have, just following that advice and noticing my feelings as they're happening and changing them if I need to. So I highly recommend that book. Anyone wanting to find positivity
Yeah, I recently listened to an episode of the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, and he had a channeler named Paul Selig, I think it's pronounced.
Okay.
And he had it was very interesting to hear. But again, all the messages that kind of came through were all these like very positive, very enlightening, simple like kind of ways to like get yourself back on the right path in life.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting stuff.
It's so fascinating. It's a whole world of information. And I'm like, when you open yourself up to it, to let it change you, and you actually start adopting these simple things, it's like literally just like focus on positive things. It's like, really? I don't know.
Right.
But if you actually sit down and do it and watch things manifest for yourself and things that you've always wanted start to happen, you're like, oh, and that you realize you are attracting negative things too. If you're sitting and worrying all the time, then the very things you're worrying about keep happening. And when you're focusing on all that negative just keeps perpetually coming. And it's like, oh, I have the power to change the way the flow's never going to stop. And in that book, they talk about going from A to B. And they're like, the point is to enjoy the journey. And guess what? When you get the thing you've been wanting, you're supposed to want more. I was like, that blew me away. I was like, what? It was like, you are supposed to keep perpetually wanting new things. And when you keep achieving, then you expand yourself, but you expand the universe. The universe keeps growing by that energy of you getting what you want and desiring and then manifesting it. So it's almost like we're growing the universe through the energy. So they said what you're supposed to do is to continue wanting things and to continue desiring things. I feel like here we're kind of taught don't want things, or that's selfish, or, that's greedy, but it's the opposite. They want us. Spirit, according to this teaching, is you're meant to want things and you're meant to go after things and you're meant to have them. Anything you want. And they're like, and then when you get it, you're meant to have the next thing. And until to go, it's forever. You're always growing and wanting and desiring. It's never going to end. Once you embrace that, you're like, oh, it's okay to want things. And I'm supposed to have the things I want. So I'm going to keep wishing and hoping and dreaming and being positive about all this great stuff happening. And there's never going to be an end to it. Like, how can you not be excited about that?
Right.
When you start to look at your creative journey, you think, I have nothing to lose because everything I've ever wanted can come to me. I can have it. And then I can have more of it. And there's never going to be an end to the things I'm wanting. So I might as well enjoy the journey and find a way to be happy today. And I'm going to find a way to be happy tomorrow and the next day. And it's going to continue. And I'm going to make adjustments as I go. And it's not always going to be perfect. And I'm going to have hard times, but I don't have to live in the hard times and fester and stew, like you said. I can and still be happy. Like in the woman who wrote the book, Esther, her husband passed away, but she says she's still the happiest person in the room because she knows where he is and she can feel him there and almost hear him. Mm. And she's still continuing to find joy in every day so that she can continue her work here. And I find that very comforting. It's just comforting to me to know that I'm co-creating my life. I'm making choices and I can have what I want. And it applies to art. All of this applies to my career and the things I want to do in my life. There's nothing that can stop me except my own thoughts.
Right. And for people that are like, oh, really, they communicate with higher dimensional entities and I can really do like go to joy to try to, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, whatever, like even if it is fake, even if it is like not real, like really look at like what the message is. It's not like they're telling you to send the person who wrote the book $200 every month in order to gain this whatever. No, it's like positive messages that even if they are fake are going to put you in a better comfortable mindset like throughout your everyday life. And like that's like the real takeaway from that. Like don't just like knock something off even if it is like new age or woo woo or weird. Yeah. Like really analyze like what it's going to do for you, like, and see if it works, see if it does put you in that like enjoying life more and like enjoying the path that you're on more. Like that's what it's all about. So whatever.
Yeah. It's only going to help you, right? Like even if you think that's a whole load of crap, there's nothing that's going to hurt you when you think and expect good things and you say, okay, this month I want to do this, this, and this. And then you say, they're going to happen. This is awesome. And then you have action. And you're excited and you're doing the things that are fun and joyful for you. Now, if you're thinking, oh, this is a slog and what a pain in the ass, then okay, no, that's not going to be the vibe you want. So either way, it's not going to hurt you to put on a more positive mindset hat and expect good things. Give it a month or two and watch how you feel and watch things unfold as you want them to. You have to believe. It's changing a belief system, which is not an overnight thing. I thought all this stuff was a load of bull, but ever since I've been like applying it in my life and being faithful and to the idea of just expecting and knowing it's coming to me, things are happening. So I'm like, all right, it's not my place to question it. I just do it. And it's so much easier. Why do I want to force a square peg in a round hole all the time? I spent my whole life doing that. I've always forcing things and I was miserable and nothing was happening with ease. I'm like, oh, we're supposed to hustle and struggle. And no, we're not. Things are supposed to flow to us easily. And you'll watch. There are people that just naturally think this way. Donald Trump is a perfect example of someone who I personally cannot stand. But I don't want to be negative. So, but what he expects, so when things go wrong for him, like say he went bankrupt, but he then made another couple $1 million. Why? Because he expected it, or he has this expectation out there of things flowing to him left and right. And they did, and they do. And it's infuriating for people to watch because you're like, well, he doesn't deserve it or he's a bad person or whatever. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who we are. We all deserve what we want. Everyone. And your mindset's going to bring you whatever it is you want. So you might as well say, hey, I want some of that. and take your claim. There's enough for everybody and it's never ending. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to get on board with this. There's nothing to lose. I love this idea. This is great. Bring it on.
Right.
Show me the money,
Trump is also a good example though of, somebody who does have that kind of like mindset where it's just like, yes, like I'm going to like get success no matter what, but he's also like a good example of somebody who doesn't have that kind of critical thinking where they can be like, oh, my bad, I was wrong on this thing. That's what I found recently. I was like, whether he's right or wrong about all of these kind of controversies that happen, like there's so many controversies that Donald, at least one of them, like you have to think that like was like a mistake, you know what I mean? And I feel like I was asking my wife, I was like, has he ever said like my bad on any of those things? Like no. So like I think people need to like maintain that balance too, where like you can like critically think about things that didn't go right and either like admit your mistakes to other people or to yourself so that you don't like kind of keep making those same mistakes.
Exactly. So you can course correct. I mean, if you keep doing the wrong thing, you're going to be miserable and you're hurting other people along the way. But if you can stop and acknowledge, hey, this hurt other people. I mean, I have a feeling he's not the happiest guy.
Yeah, me too.
And I feel like because he's attracting a lot of negativity and he's coming from a place of negativity and rolling around in it. And it's just bringing on negativity to the whole country. Everyone's feeling negative. Why? Because it's like our leader is doing negative things and there's a negative air about it. And the things he says have an air of negativity. So then it makes us feel negative. But I've just learned, hey, I turn it off. I don't look at it. I don't listen. I have to turn it. I can't let it affect me because it then puts me in a negative place and it prevents me from having what I want. So I'm like, okay, so now I'm actively turning away. If there's someone on Facebook in my group or wherever that's like being negative, I unfollow, And because it's just, I don't want that to disease me. I don't want it to permeate my being. And I just don't have room for it anymore. And I think if we all were to do that, wouldn't the world be a happier place and feel so much better? If we all were collectively like moving, doing joyful things, there would be no room for negative things to happen. And it's very simple. It's like deceptively simple. And it's like, it can't be that easy, but it really is. So I show, hey, Trump can do a lot of things. He attracts a lot of negativity, but he also attracts the things he expects to get. The things he expects happen. So I'm like, hey, all right, I'm going to start expecting some things and it's going to be awesome. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of good things. You could be jealous of them and say, well, they do this, this, and this. It's like, well, hey, they figured it out, so I'm going to figure it out. So I'm excited.
I completely agree. And well, when politics get involved in this show, that's where we call a hard stop.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, Megan, this has been awesome, but it is time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today. Just give them your best final words of advice and really push them to pursue their own creative passions and to find that place of joy.
My best advice would be to stop fretting and to stop worrying and wondering, and know that what you have to offer is important. What you have to offer, someone is looking for it. Who are you to not share your gifts with others and make the world a better place through whatever it is that you love to do? And people say, well, what's my purpose? Or who cares about this? Well, people do care. And people will find it, but you have to do the thing. And then you have to do the thing and then put it out there. It doesn't have to be full of struggle or strife. Just find something that you love doing and you just do it from the happiest place. And whatever that tickles your heart and makes you smile, I guess. It's the only feeling I can describe it is if it's tickling your heart, then that's the right thing. And do more of that and share yourself with people. And don't be afraid. Just try it and see and go from there. And your feelings are going to guide you. Does it feel good? Does it feel right? Does it feel positive? That's guiding you. That's everyone saying, yes, keep doing this. And if you're feeling like, oh, that was awful or soul sucking, then, oh, okay, put the brakes on and try something else. Don't be afraid to experiment and try things, but using joy and happiness and fulfillment as your guide. And if you need to, do some research and thinking about mindset. What is it about your mindset that needs to change? I used to think, hey, no one can be an artist. You have to be in New York City. Well, no, you can sell on your own website now and sell online, and I can live in any town. I had a limiting belief. What are your limiting beliefs? And think about them. Think about all the things that are holding you back. Well, I can't do this because. And why are you thinking that? And why not you? And try to answer and say why you can do the thing and try to heal those limiting beliefs. It's a lot of internal work comes before your creative success. So that's my push is to really get in alignment with what it is you most desire. And when you have figured that out and done the soul searching you need to do of finding what it is that makes you happy, you're never going to go wrong. And you can only get excited about it. And we all know that feeling of doing the thing you love and getting excited. That's the thing you need to do. Stop questioning it and stop belaboring it and just go for it. And you're never going to go wrong. Never. You just have to stay faithful and expectant that good things are coming and don't ever doubt it. And if you start to doubt it, then change the thought. So that's my biggest advice to anybody out there. I mean, I've been around the block with trying every other thing and I wasted so much time. And it's really just so simple. Just, take your time and think I can have it all. I deserve to have it all. We all do. All of us. Just come from a place of happy and you're going to be good.
Absolutely. Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for giving us that push. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me and letting me share my experience.
Of course. We really appreciate you sharing your experience. And you can find Megan on our website, which is megancartyart.com. And on Facebook and Instagram, she is Megan Carty Art. That's Carty. And we'll have all of that linked up at today's show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Megan Carty. Megan, thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yay. My thanks to Megan once again for coming on the show and really getting personal and diving deep into her own journey to share what she has learned about getting back on that path of joy. And I love that thread that kind of went through her entire creative journey, like the idea of the teacher holding your picture up and striving to get your picture held up and trying to please others, and how once that starts to kind of sink its teeth into you at a young age, it never really lets go. And it's something that you have to deal with for the rest of your life, the rest of your creative career. Remember to get back to that path of what brings you joy. It's great that other people will also find joy from it, and you'll learn that this back and forth, like joy-giving thing between you and your audience is what the creative process is all about and what you should be striving for. But the first step to getting there is to find that joy for yourself, to enjoy that ride from point A to point B, not telling yourself that you will eventually be happy once you get to that point, but deciding to enjoy it all the way, through the ups and the downs, through the negatives, through the positives. The fact that you are on that ride makes you the luckiest person in the world. Not everybody is brave enough to leave point A to try to get to point B. So really give yourself a pat on the back, especially if you are doing the thing that you have dreamed of doing, the thing, that you wished upon a star to get to. That's a superpower that we all have, of truly believing that something will happen, of wishing upon a star. And it really is that easy. And I know it feels like a dangerous thing to say to a star, to yourself, to the universe, whatever it is that you truly want. But it's so important to keep wishing it, to keep saying it out loud, because that is the way that you actually get it. You are the one that can make it happen. So get out there and make it happen. Like I said, this was an episode that had a huge impact on me listening back. I think because I was coming at it from a different mindset, a mindset that needed to hear it. So maybe save this episode, bookmark it, write it down, and come back to it the next time you're feeling a little extra negative. If you're in a bad headspace, if you've had a bad day, week, month, whatever it may be, it will put you right back in the proper mindset. Huge thank you to Megan for doing that for me and doing it for you later on. On our next episode, we have Nikki Ray. Nikki is an independent author who comes on the show to share her journey as a writer and her journey as an author. She tells the story of writing and getting published her first novel. And it was one of the first kind of pushes in the right direction for me to start thinking about creating the Your Creative Push book, which I'll be doing in January. So I had a lot of fun talking with her, and she's going to inspire you, regardless of your creative passion, to get to that creative passion, to get to those big projects, especially the projects that scare you the most. If you want to check out Nikki before the episode, you can head to her website. That's nikkirayauthor.com, NIKKIRAE author.com. And on Twitter, she is Nikki Ray Author as well. Or you can head to the show notes page today at yourcreativepush.com/264 to find links to her stuff as well as everything we talked about today with Megan. But that is all I've got for you today, so hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. Have an incredibly productive week, and we will see you next time if you need the push again. I love you all so much. Go get some amazing work done, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.